Try to plug it in here and see
You
what
wanna like,
happens.
so you have to like think to this thing. You have to
Oh,
connect them.
okay, I can just take care of
Yes.
it while you're.
Open it.
I think it's good enough.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So plug it in there. Can you plug it? Okay. Hello, everyone. I think that's the time, right? Let me just check. Yes. Okay. So I'll show 45. Okay. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Yay. Um, so okay. We can great. So we're gonna like continue our discussion from last session and talk about database. I have a presentation, and the presentation has two files. One file I will work on, one file you will follow up. So if you go to like Canvas, there's a link here. You can click on it. It's kind of like it has some of the slides I have. It also has a few things that like you kind of follow up and also like input your information throughout the presentation. And then at the end, you have like you need to submit a PDF version. The app automatically like will put your like inputs into a template. You just need to download it and upload it. So when anytime you're just like you're typing like anything, any of these like text boxes or selecting anything, it automatically records that. And at the end, you just need to download the PDF and upload it. And there are some like items here that like you can select, unselect, you know, and that records that. It just helps you to like follow up and kind of like review the things we talk about. So this is my version. Let me start here. So today we want to talk about database management and data modeling. We want to kind of like review what we did last session and then connect that practice into today's topic and see how actually that practice like was related to this database concept. So what I will do is today we want to cover a few concepts like identifying what is an data entity, what are the like what do we call attributes data entities, what is primary key, foreign key, and then like we talk about relationships, we talk about what is a relationship, how do we identify a relationship, and then we talk about different types of relationships. One-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many. What are they and how do we identify them? And like how do we like how do they like relate to database design? So we are gonna like talk about all of them. Let's review what we did last session. We worked on that practice. Like we had that table that like included like data about like orders, like customers placed, order like details. What was that? I think your version has that table. Okay, so this was the table we worked on, like included the orders information. Like with every order, we had the customers who placed the order, customer name, customer city. It included the product information, product category, and then also like the information that we needed to record the order. So when we were looking at it and reviewing it, we identified some of the very important issues. We identified like one of the important issues we identified was like update pain. What was that? We saw that like if we let's say we want to update a customer's address, a customer is moving to a new city and like want to update the address, and to like we have all the records, right? So in order to update their address, we need to look at the table. We need to look at the table, locate all the records that like related to that customer, okay? And then for each one of them, we need to update the address. So if a customer has like hundreds of orders, we have to change the address one by one for every one. First, we need to locate them to update them. So it's not an easy job, and we have to do that so many times. What if this is much more than that? It's going to be much more difficult to do. The same way, other product, right? Product name, product category, unit price, other info about product in every record. So what if like we want to change like a product name or product description? I have to go find every record like that includes that product information and update that. So one serious issue, update pain is not like exists here. We have it. Then what's the redundancy issue we saw? What's the redundancy? Hey, we have customer, like for example, about the customer, we have their like customer name, city, and state being like repeated with every record, every order. It's not something that changes from order to order, from minute to minute. So we're just creating a lot of redundancy here. The same way about the product. This doesn't change from an order to order, but I'm recording it with every order. It's a redundancy. Identity confusion. Do you remember what was the issue? Like an example with the identity confusion? What's it? Yes.
There were like two people with the same name, but we could never 100% tell that these two people are the same people or like different from each other.
Right? Exactly. So we have two records that indicate the customer name is like very similar, like exact same names. I ask you, are these two records, these two orders belong to the same customer or not? Because like we could have customers that have similar like names, similar address, like just let's say extreme case. It's not an extreme case if I talk about a product. We could have products that have exactly same features, very small differences. Maybe the dimension is different. I don't know, like some features different. I look at the records and I see all of like a lot of features here like the same. Can you like tell me 100% these two records, these two orders, like are like for product or for different products? Because there could be two products with the same attributes, similar attributes, names, features, but maybe something is different like about them. I don't know, like we can like think of like some feature that is different. So, but we want to be able to 100% say, no, these are two different products. Ordered, placed with two different products. Oh no, that's okay. These orders are placed for the same product, 100%. These orders are placed by the same person, 100%. So how do we solve that? Okay, these are the issues. Then we propose a solution. We want to change one. We want to like find a way that like we have to change once. So store all the facts in one place so that if we want to change it, we change it once. What was the example? Let's like break that down, that table, that big table, into separate tables. We have customer table, order table, product table. Now I have customer name, address, city, and other like information about customer in one place. And I will record it only once. You just want to record the customer's information once. So now if you want to update it like someone's address, you only like there's only one record in the customer table that is like about to update the address, I'm going to go to that table and update the address, and that's one update, one action. So instead of update, like making so many updates, I only updated once. I only take one action. If I wanted to update order, only one action. There was one order in the order table. I go and update the information about that order. If I want to update a product, I go to the product table and update it once. There's only one record for that product. Know who's who. We found one solution to address that issue. What was that? Let's like assign a unique identifier for every record in the table. And then we want to like, we will say that like every record has one unique identifier, and that's unique for every record in that table. Every customer like record, every customer that we record in the customer table has one record, one unique identifier. Customer, we named it customer ID. Set uniquely like assigned to one customer. That way, we're going to use that number anytime we want to like reference that customer, and that will like 100% guarantee that there is only one customer with that number. The same way with the product, we're going to assign like we are going to look at the product table and assign every record one unique identifier, and that will indicate that hey, in the product table, with every product that we record, there is one, like there's a column we call product ID. That ID is unique for every product. Don't worry about the PK, FK, talk about them later. But for now, you see, for every table, we assign one column that was like a unique identifier, let's see. So the same way for the like orders. Now we have like the order ID that is like for every order we assign a number that is unique to that order. So that also solved the other issue with the like identity issue. Connect the facts. So we broke down like that big table into separate tables, customer, product, order. But now the next, we had to connect them. How, like, why we needed to connect them? I would ask you, okay, if I have the order, now we like place the customer's information into one table in the customer table. So the order table doesn't have anything about the customer initially. I will ask you, okay, who placed the order? I have to know, like I have a record in the order table, means a new record, new order. So who placed that order? I need to know the customer. That means I needed to connect these links. How do I connect them? I needed to choose one of the columns, one of the fields from the customer table and place it into the orders table. That's how I connect them, how I link them. Which column? So for that, we wanted to make sure that column like indicates a unique thing. So when we go to the customer table, we are sure about the identity of that person. That's why we use the customer ID, not customer name, not any other field, because each one of them could be similar, different like people. The only thing that is like unique to every customer is the customer ID. That's why here, to link order to a customer, I use the customer ID. To link this order to a product, I use product ID, because I know product ID is unique for every product in the product table. For now, we could say, okay, order, we also have order items. That's the one that we talked about and said, okay, for now, let's ignore it and say we only have 3 tables. Orders, product, and then customer. That makes sense. What's the review of last session? Like we kind of like touched these topics, right? We saw anomaly, consistency issues, right? Can choose them, like that's how we choose them in records it. And then like okay, with the inconsistency, we find out like we can create a table, add a unique identifier, and then we can for anomaly, like add a unique customer ID. That way we kind of like identify like everyone uniquely, and like we don't have the other issues. like you like added the fields, and then like for example here, what would be like the unique identifier for a customer table? It said we're gonna specify a customer ID column, and that's the unique identifier for that table. Okay. So with that, now like let's actually start like database. And what's a database? What's a database management system or database collection of logically data and metadata? Logically related data and metadata. In other words, we have a set of tables. We are store data in each table, and these tables are related to each other in some way. They're linked to each other in some way. The same way that we created. We had one table, we broke down that one table into three tables, and we said these three tables are related to each other, are linked to each other. How? We said customer places the order. That's the link between them. An order is placed by someone. An order was created by someone. That's the link between them. That's database. A set of tables, a set of like, we're going to call them data entities that are linked to each other, related to each other. That's just like a idea of a database. What's a relational database? Just the concept is that, hey, we just talked about the fact that like, hey, customer and order table are related to each other. What is that relationship? Customer places the order. That's what we call them relational database. There is a relationship between the tables. That's a relational database. Why is it a database? Because there is a relationship between the tables. A product like related to order, an order related to a customer. How is that relationship? We will describe that relationship. It's like an order was placed by an individual, or an individual like can place many orders. Relationship. That's what we call it, relational database. But then you would say, okay, why we're gonna like make it complicated and like not just like stick with Excel? You know, we can create tables and like add the links as like we did last session. We created the tables, we can place the data in each table. So there are some issues with Excel that like stop us from doing that. First, it is limited, like the number of rows, meaning the number of records that you can store in a table is limited to, I don't know, like maybe 65,000 as it says. So that's one thing. The records are limited. If you have like 100,000 records or more than that, you cannot use an Excel. The other thing is like managing is like difficult. You have to manually like go and add the like a table, manually funks between the tables. Like, okay, this order like is linked to which customer. Let me just go to the customer table and find it. And then you have to move between the tables. What if you have 10 tables, 20 tables? What is the type of relationship between the tables? It's not clear. That's why we don't use Excel. For simple cases, maybe you use them, that's okay. But generally, you kind of use them for data analytics or other purposes, not for data management. That's why we have other like applications like Access, the one that we work on, like we'll use this course, or like Microsoft like Excel, like Microsoft like what is it, SQL, that you will work with later if you take a database course. And here we use Access. Okay, let's now get to know a little bit about the terminology in database management. Primary key. What's a primary key? Primary key is a unique value belonging to each record. Did we learn about this before? Yes, right? We learned about it before. We actually used it. When did we use it? We said, hey, I will separate these tables, and like for every table, I will assign a unique identifier. So every record is uniquely identified. So I know who's who. Now, that's we just call this primary key. The terminology is primary key. Other than that, that's it. That's the one we use. Like a unique code number for every record in that table. That's what we call primary key. Table has its own primary key. Basically has a field, has a column that indicates that like those unique numbers, those unique IDs that are assigned to every record in the table. So that's a primary key. What is a foreign key? A primary key field of one table repeated in another table to make a link. So a primary key field of one table repeated in another table to make a link. So we are using a primary key of another table in the secondary table as a link. Okay, let's let me see if you have this here. Let me just check this. You should have it. Okay, you should have every one of these slides on your file too. So if you go to the file, you should have it in your file too. Okay, let me go back to here. First, now you see why we have like that PK next to customer ID, next to product ID, next to order ID. These are primary keys of those tables. That was the column that would like store that unique identifier, unique number, unique character, like some combination of like numbers and characters that like used to uniquely identify every record in the table. That's a primary key. So every table has its own primary key. Now, what is a foreign key? So foreign key is this. You see, like customer ID is a primary key in this table. Is a primary key in this table. When you use that primary key of another table in another table as a reference, as a way to link that table, that's when you call that foreign key. That's when you call it foreign key. So I use the customer ID here to link order to customer, to say this order was placed by like that particular customer. So I use it as a link, as a reference. Call it foreign key. Product ID as a foreign key. So I use that as a reference to say which product was ordered, to reference that. Product ID is not a primary key here, it's a primary key in this table, in the product table. If I'm using it somewhere else, that's when I call it foreign key. Okay, so primary key, foreign key. If the key is for the table itself, it's primary key. If the key is like belongs to another table and I'm using it in another table, in a secondary table, that's when it becomes a foreign key. A lot of times it's not that easy to like think about, and it's always kind of confusing to think about where do I need to place the links? Where do I need to place the links? Which is like the foreign keys here. Because you would say, okay, should I place order ID in the customer table or customer ID in the order table? That's a question you're gonna like ask yourself in different cases. Where do I place these keys? In this one, the other one, for creating the link. For specifying the primary key is simple. Every table has its own primary key. That should be like that shouldn't be like that should become easier to identify as we practice more. But it's still creating that link and placing the key in the right place is like a lot of times usually like a bit confusing. So how do we identify that? I think there is one good solution for it, and that's the question. Every time you have the tables, first add the tables, add their fields, and add their primary keys. That's the first step, not adding the links. That's the last step you're doing. So let's say I don't have them here. The only thing I have is like whatever I have right now. So in this table, I have customer ID, name, phone, address. In this table, I have product ID, name, price category. And in this table, I have order ID, order date, quantity, unit price, and payment. Okay, let's go with that. Then I start from a table. Like I'm going to start from customer table. Can I add a new record to it? If I have customer name, customer address, and like a phone number. If I don't know anything about the products, about the orders, can I add a new record to the customer table? I should be able to do that. It's just like give fields, name, address, and phone number, add a new record to that table. There is nothing missing. If I have those three things, I should be able to add that record. The same way, if you give me the name, price, and category of the product, I'm going to add that record into the product table. There is no information needed there. Now, if I give you order date, quantity, unit price, and payment method, can you add a new record to the order table? That's a question. If you can add it, like if you attempt to add that record, then I will say, okay, I see a record in the order table that indicates like order date, quantity, unit price, and method, but I don't know who placed that order. I don't know what product was placed, like ordered. So something is missing here. You cannot add a new record to the order table without knowing the customer, without knowing the product. So those are the prerequisites for adding a new order. This order was like had to be placed by someone. So that means there is someone has to exist before the other one exists, right? Has to be a customer, so you have an order. That tells you, like, if you identify that link, that's the way that you can identify where to put the place, okay? So for an order, has to be a customer. So that's where, that's when I know that there is a link between these two tables, and always I place the key in the table I need to know. In the order table, I need to know who's that customer. So I need the identification of the customer. And we said from now on, we will use for identification for references, we use the primary keys of tables. So what is the primary key of a customer table? Is the customer ID. So I use that here. The same way, I need to know there has, like, can we have a system that we don't have any product, but we have an order? You have to have a product to be able to sell, to record an order. So one is the prerequisite for the other one, for the other one to exist. That just tells you there is a link here. One depends on the other one, and also where you place that, like, primary key. So I need the primary key of the product table to place it in the order table, so it tells me like what product was ordered. Does that make sense? Right? If you like always go with that, which one is the prerequisite for other one? Is there a prerequisite for customer? Can you, like, is there something else you need before you add a new record to the customer table? No, customer just needs, like, okay, I need the customer information to add it there. I need the product information to add it there. There is no, like, nothing like that is required before doing that. But for order, we need to have a customer, we need to have a product. So that's one way to identify that. So again, a primary key, unique value belonging to each record. Foreign key, a primary key field of one table repeated in another table to make a link. I want to talk about the compound and composite primary keys in a different presentation, but I have it here. We'll talk about it like when we have an example to look at it and see what is that case. Okay, so we are gonna use Access, and in Access you will see tables look like this. The conceptual view of them, not the table itself. Like we have a conceptual view of a like a database design, and then you also have the tables. But that's how we show how the table looks like. Or now on, we'll call them data entities. Data entity, data entity. There are like multiple data entities in a database. What's a data entity? That's that database. Now we just call it data entity. Every data entity has its own attributes. What's an attribute? That column of that table, now we call it attribute. Why do we call it attribute? Because we are talking about like things that describe that entity, describe that table. Like customer, customer name, customer address, they're just giving you information about that entity. In this case, my contribution, like who contributed like information. In every table, you will see a field and next to it a key. You see that key that indicates that field is the primary key, is used, that column is used as a key, as the way to uniquely identify every record in that table. So in this case, there is a column, and that column is contribution ID, and that key indicates that it's the primary key of that table. Okay, so every table has to have a primary key. How did we design the database last session without knowing it was, hey, we looked at the table, let's say our database had one table, and we realized the structure is not right, so we had to break it down to multiple tables. So we identified entities, or in that case, we identified the facts, customer, order, product. We created multiple entities and then added the attributes, added the columns about them into that table. The customer, customer name, address, product name, order. And then added to each data entity, we added a column, unique identifier. Now we call them primary keys. So for every table, we need to add a primary key, a field that is used as a primary key, a field, a column. And then after that, we want to look at to see which tables are linked to each other, which tables are related to each other. That's why we have a relational database. We'll have tables that are related to each other. So in this case, customer and order are related to order. Customer and product, are they related to each other directly? They're not related to each other directly. They're related to each other through an order. Customer places an order for a product, right? The relationship exists through order. There is no direct relationship. So we want to find those relationships and link those. Okay, let's see it through this like practice. So look at this. So we have two tables. One, like the customer table, and one like the order table. We have that field, that primary. Now we see a primary key. That column that like is like basically shows that unique identity, like identifier assigned to every record in that table. Like this record here has one like unique number. There is no like two records with the same customer ID in this table. There won't be, and it cannot be. Once like in Access, once you specify the column as a primary, okay, this is something that you don't like. You only like the one that you do is like assigning a column as a primary key. After that, the system is designed to automatically. So you're not going to do this by manual. The system will automatically always assign unique number, unique character, unique like identifier to every. That's how it makes sure records with the same ID. So this is not something that we will do. The system will automatically do it. You just need to assign which column should be used. That's it. The other ones we are going to update. We are going to have access to like, hey, I want to add value to update it. This is the one that once you assign a column like a primary key, that's the one that we are not going to be able to do anything with it, because this is something that the system uses for like referencing, for keeping consistency, integrity in that system. That's why like everything is done automatically. Again, in this case, I like assign like created a column called order ID and specified it as order like a primary key. From now on, every time I add a new record to the table, it automatically adds a unique number, unique character, unique thing to that like record, to that column that like is unique for every record. In that case, there are no in the order table. like always like 5 1 1 0. This is unique for that order. So primary key. This column here is unique for every record and it's like the primary key of customer. In this case, order ID is the primary key of the order table. Okay, now what was the foreign key? Foreign key is the primary key of another table, used another table as a reference, as a way to link them. That's when you call that foreign key. Again, primary key of another table, used in another table to link the table. That's when you call that foreign key. Okay. Any question? Foreign key, primary key. That's something that like we are gonna like repeat so many times. That's how it kind of like gets in our head. Okay. Any question? Great. Okay. So now let's do something fun. So I think you should have it too. Okay. Yes. Okay. Again, you want to take a step back before getting to the next like database terminology. You want to like just do it without knowing anything about the terminology. Okay. So I want to like we said, this is like we're going to work with relational databases. Means that the tables, some tables are related to each other, not like everyone is related to one else. Like order in this case is related to like directly related to the orders table and maybe indirectly related to order, like to the product table. But like let's focus on the direct relationships. We want to be able to describe that relationship. It is one of the key things about like database design is to start describing the relationships between two tables, those that have a direct relationship, because that's the way that we can actually build the right like design. So we're going to start from here and say, okay, I have, let's say I have two tables now, the customer and I have order table. Okay, I want to describe that relationship from each side, meaning that from customer to order and from order to customer. In a relational database, you are able to, or you should be able to describe the relationship from both sides and write them down. So let's write them down. One record in, okay, one record in, I'm going to start from here, customer, okay, customer table is linked, or sometimes you can add it related to, okay, to, I'm going to leave this records in, I'm focused in this direct relationship between customer and order. So I'm going to say order table. Okay, so one record in the customer table is linked to ... records in the customer and like order table. Okay, we don't need that. I want to identify like what should I place there? What should I place there? For that, looking for two things: minimum, maximum. Okay, min and max. One record in the customer table is linked to minimum how many records in the order table? Minimum how many records? Okay, so that's what we are looking for. How many? For that, let's go back to the part one. Okay, not too much. Okay, so when I say one record from the customer table is linked or could be linked to how many records in the order table? How many records in the table? Minimum and maximum. Someone tells me minimum, someone can tell me maximum. So one. So one record, let's say we're looking at like one of them. One record, okay, how many minimum? Yes.
At minimum one.
One, okay. Anyone else wants, like, do you agree with one or not? Any other? Yes,
Many.
many, okay, many records in the order table. What else? Any other, like, or do you agree, disagree? Yes, no, yes, okay, great. Yeah.
I only ever see. Yeah, I only ever see exact one. I mean, conceivably we could do more, but really, if you want to avoid redundancy, you only need.
I think, first of all, I noticed that this practice example is not the good one because it does include different sort of example, like possibilities. But it shows you like the idea that, okay, one record can be linked to some records in the other table. In this case, one record in the customer table is linked in the one that we have, like every record is linked to one order. But with that take that into account and now think about like a real case. Can I have customers that have no orders? Can you register on Amazon, but you have an order? I have to record your data in the customer table, but in the order table, you haven't placed any order. So there is no order recorded for you. Is that possible? Yes, yes, right? So in a lot of, like in most cases, usually the minimum is 0. Some cases could be 1, but in most cases you say, okay, we can have customers that there is no order for them in the order table. So the minimum is 0. So we could have customers in the customer table that there are no orders for them. So there is no record. They're linked to no records in the order table. That makes sense, right? And now maximum. How many? 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, many, right? So we could have a customer in the customer table that is linked to 10 records in the order table, 20 records in the order table. So that means the maximum could be like, I don't know, 4, 10, and more, multiple, many. That's how we describe the relationship. So what is the relationship? Now let's go back to the slide. One record in the customer table is linked, and we always indicate minimum and maximum. Okay, linked to 0 or more or many. Like you can use many, you can use more. Now you see how that sounds like each customer, you can read it this way. Each customer is linked to 0 or many orders. Or one record in the customer table is linked to 0 or more records in the order table. That's the relationship between these tables or data entities. Yes.
Can we phrase it as any number including 0? Does that make sense to you?
That's a good point. Like there is some like common language in the database concepts that usually use like this: 1 to like 1 or more, like 1 and 1. Like we're gonna see that in the next slide actually. Okay, but like this is like common that say if you want to say minimum is 0, 0. If it's 1, 1, and then the maximum, either you can use more or you can use multiple. Okay, just indication that like usually you don't specify the maximum, but the minimum has to be specified because that is one of those things that is like the system is built for. I can give you an example. If I set this 1, the programmer who will build the system will have to make sure that like the customer has to place the order to be registered. That's a very important constraint to the like software design. So when you choose the minimum, you have to be very careful how you choose it because it has a lot of like implications for the design of that application or that system. That's why usually they go with 0, so they don't put so like a serious like constraint when it comes to those cases. Just keep that in mind. That's enough. So 0 or more records in order table. And I told you every relationship should be described in both sides. So we only described that from customer to order. Now let's describe it in the other side. Okay, from order to customer. So one record in order table, okay, is linked or related to, okay, dot record in customer table. Okay. Okay, now let me go back here. Looking at, so one record from the order table is linked to how many records in the customer table? Minimum and maximum. What is minimum? What is maximum? Someone else, like the other members of this class, are paying attention. One record from the order table, each order is linked to minimum how many customers and maximum how many customers. Let's see if anyone else wants to say. Now, anyone? Yes? Minimum? No? Yes? Okay.
Just one.
One? Yes? One? No? Yes? I'm sorry, I didn't. Okay, many? Okay. Yes?
Minimum zero.
0? Okay. Let's look at the table. We said in every record we see, you will have a column for the foreign key, right? In that foreign key column, we see a number. What is that here? For example, C109. How many customers exist with that number?
One.
That's right. There is only one and one customer. That means like every order is linked to only one and one record in the customer table. That's the relationship. Why do we have the foreign key here? And that's like, sorry, that's the primary key of that table. Okay, these are not twice right. So goes back to here to say one record in the order table is linked to one and only one record in the customer table. There is only one person with that number, with that customer ID in the customer table. So that relationship, okay, that relationship will always be one-to-one in this case. Look at this customer ID. This customer ID belongs to only one person, right? So that means that record, that whole record is linked to only one person, one record in this table. Does that make sense? Right? One person. Someone, one individual placed the order. One individual placed the order. Who is that? The person whose ID is like 109. And if you want to know, just go to this table and you will know who is. That's what foreign primary key, because that identity we had. Remember identity issue? So we came up this like unique ID to be assigned to everyone. So we always know there's only one person with that number, with that identifier. Okay. So great. One more, very quickly. Okay. One record in, I will look at this product. Okay. Product table is linked to a product. We could have products that haven't been sold yet. So that means like could be no record in the order table linked to that product. So minimum is 0. Or we could have sold many of them. So that means many records in the order table linked to one product, like many or more. Okay, either you choose more or many, that's okay. Record in order table. Okay. We have 5 minutes, right? Yes. Okay. So very quickly, what we did talk about, this is it. We call relational type, relation type. We have three types of relationships. We will see one-to-one, one-to-many relationship, and many-to-many relationship. Today, we only talk about one-to-many relationship. What does one-to-many relationship looks like? Exactly like this. There is a one-to-many relationship between the customer and order table. What does that mean? One record, one customer is linked to many orders. We no longer as minimum when specify the relationship, but that's what it means. One-to-many relationship. One-to-many relationship between the customer and order table. That's a one-to-many relationship. We'll have many-to-many relationships and other ones that we want to talk about them later. So since we don't have much time, I'll give you a few minutes. This is the table, okay, similar to what we had last session. But now what you're going to do is okay, go to this. Okay, so you have the table. It has the same issues we had before. And what you will do is you will add, create multiple tables, break it down. Okay, create singular facts, add the columns, every table. Now every data entity has its own primary key. Once you add this, the last step is to find which tables are linked to each other and place the link at the right place. Do that, and also write at least one of these sentences before we finish that, just the one the one that we actually talked about. At the end, you can go here, okay, review it, download the PDF, which includes data, and then as the class practice. That is it. I'm gonna stop here so you can work on this one. Okay. So let me go back here. Make sure to review this table, and that's where it starts. We have reservation. In the same table, we have reservation, we have customers information, we have the bike information. You see, we have redundancy. We are repeating the bike model in every record. We are repeating the customer info every record. We should do something about this redundancy, identity issue. Okay. In the meantime, I can look up the system to give you the attendance key. Okay. Don't forget to take the attendance and add this code. Now, if you have questions, just raise your hand. I'll come and answer your question.
I know you have one.
Customer info, reservation. The unique line logos of each rec. Customer and then for. That's why we introduced the IC. And then. You want about in my class. How do you identify each customer? What is something that you can? I can provide a second. I guess. And then for reservations, what is the thing that you identify reservation? Is it the reservation? What's the thing? Like what else still reservation? And then I felt that there has to be something common.
So, yeah, all listed.
All you also as in reservation.
Yeah.
Or so all three have reservation.
You should take the attendance. Remember to do that. Quickly.
And for that ID.
Don't forget to take the attendance.
And then.